Well, hi there. Thanks for finding The Profitable Photographer with Lucy Dumas here on YouTube. If you want more, you can just go to any podcast channel and find the show, or go to lucydumascoaching.com, Lucy with an I, to learn more about me and to listen to shows. And thank you for subscribing, sharing with your friends, and I hope you enjoy. Bye for now. To build a long-term successful enterprise, when you don't close a sale, open a relationship. And that is a quote by Patricia Fripp. And I want to welcome you again to The Profitable Photographer. And I also want to ask a favor. Doing a podcast is like throwing notes in a bottle and hoping it lands on shore somewhere. I'm a person who thrives on words of affirmation. That's my love language. If you look back on, there's the cutest squirrel. That's what's been eating my pomegranate, squirrels. Okay. It was a real, usually we're like, squirrel. There's actually a squirrel out there on my fence eating a pomegranate. Mystery solved. Okay. Anyway, I would love more feedback. I'm upping my Instagram game. So I'd love if you'd follow me. And also, I'm joining YouTube. So I'd love for you to comment, share, email me. Don't be a stranger. All right. That being said, today's guest is not a stranger. It's a good friend that recently I got to see in person. And it's Jeff Dachowki. Now, who is this neat guy? He's an award-winning Master Craftsman Photographer. He's owned a highly profitable studio, and we like highly profitable everything, with his lovely wife, Carolle, in New Hampshire since 2003. How'd I do with my foreign accent?
Yeah, you did pretty well. You sound more Boston, but it's all right. New Hampshire.
Yeah.
New Hampshire, okay.
New Hampshire. Jeff is the president of Professional Photographers of America until March 2023. He's an internationally approved PPA Juror, certification judge, and a Vatican Approved Photographer. Jeff.
Hey.
Vatican Approved Photographer.
Yeah.
What is that?
So if you would like to photograph papal visits, or photograph for the Pope or of the Pope, or photograph and have press credentials within the Vatican or within their system, you have to be an approved Vatican photographer. And so there's a process in which you go through the background check, and they look at your work to make sure you're professional. They run you through Interpol, and they run you through all the Swiss Guard background check, and then you get approved.
Wow.
And there you are.
All right. So add that to your bucket list.
Little badges that I have for when I go to photograph the Pope.
Have you photographed the Pope?
I've been assigned 5 times to photograph the popes. Yeah.
Oh, when he comes to the U.S. or?
No, I photographed the popes 4 different times in Europe, and once in Canada.
Wow, that's very cool. The new Pope, how many times have you?
So it's so we photographed Pope Francis 4 times and Pope Benedict once.
Oh, cool. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't finish my bio, but I was like, Vatican approved. I need to know more. All right. Jeff is the president of the Society of 25. And not only that, he's super fun and a really great human. So, hey, Jeff, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hey, I just want to correct one thing. And I know that's from the last time. I'm not the current president of Society of XX-V. Okay. That's Monica Sigmund. So I just want to make sure I don't want to take anything from anyone. I was president for 3 years, I think, at XX-V, and now I'm not. I'm just a plain old member.
Past president, then we can.
I just don't want to take anything from someone else,
Yeah. So the first thing I want to chat about, since you're Mr. PPA and I'm a lifetime member and a big cheerleader for PPA, I'm curious, what do you say to people who are, well, first of all, what is the Professional Photographers of America? It's a good start.
So PPA, Professional Photographers of America, PPA, is the world's oldest and largest photographic association. In fact, we're one of the oldest associations of all time. There's only a couple other associations ever that were created prior to PPA. We're over 150 years old. And our goal really is to help move photographers forward in their craft and in what they want to do, meaning help them create enough business for themselves and enough profit for themselves so that they are producing a business that provides for their family or supports them emotionally or artistically or whatever they decide. So we certainly want to support them in all of our endeavors. We are well known for adding insurance products to our membership in the last couple of years. It's been a big deal. We're big proponents of your craft. As I know, we're a big fan of the photographic competition and evaluation. We have the long-running merit image review, or IPC is what it was called for many years. In February, we started a new merit image review, which is a bit of a different game for our members, and that it's monthly versus once a year. And we also lobby on behalf of small creators of the world. We got the CASE Act passed at the end of 2020.
What is that?
The CASE Act is an act that created a small claims tribunal so that if your work was infringed on, in your work, your copyright is a federal right, meaning that if someone infringes on your right, steals one of your photographs or part of your photograph, and they do it, they hurt you, they harm you by taking your work. Currently, or prior to the CASE Act, you had to bring your case to federal court, which was extremely expensive endeavor. And if your infringement was only $2,000 or $4,000 or $10,000, your attorney's fees would equal around $100,000.
Yeah.
And so it didn't make a lot of sense. Most infringements weren't big. And so PPA lobbied, created a network of other small creative artisans like the Copyright Alliance, that we work together to create and pass the CASE Act, which creates a small claims type court for copyright. And so we're going to everything. It took us 10 years to pass that. And if you know anything about trying to pass laws in this country, if you're not a massive organization, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So our members did this with their support, which is kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Now,
Now,
about 35,000 members right now.
oh, is that all? That's awesome. And most years at the national convention, there's 10, 11,000 people.
Yeah, 10 to 12,000 people. I'm hoping to see 12,000 people this year at Nashville in January at the 2023 IUSA.
And it's a great way to make new friends. And years later, when you have a podcast, know people like Jeff and say, hey, get on my show.
I mean, this is my second visit here to see you, Lucy. And I mean, I warmly reflect back to San Antonio, where we had never met, but we knew each other via a forum, of the PPA online forum, like essentially the Loop today. And so we sat and we went to the opening reception and we sat at a table together and chatted for an hour or so. And that's what I love about, you're right, that's exactly right. PPA offers a whole lot of things, but the ability to connect with a bunch of people from around the world it's unparalleled in the value to a photographer.
Yeah. His name's not coming to me right now, but the gentleman from Russia, St. Petersburg,
Sergey.
Yes, he's been on my show. And, once you meet him, he's your new best friend from Russia. So, by the way, I just realized this show's been in 91 countries. That's almost half the countries in the world.
Congratulations.
It thrills me. I would love to hear from people in other countries. So I wanted to say something about the copyright. People's Court, at lunchtime, I watched the People's Court, and there was a copyright infringement issue from a wedding.
Yeah.
and the judge ruled against the photographer because he hadn't registered.
Yeah.
So he took it. So I called PPA, and I'm going to have the head of the copyright division on my show shortly. But I asked him what gives, and he said, before you file a lawsuit, you need to simply register those images. So that was a surprise to me, because I was like, Judge Marilyn Millian, you are wrong. And no, she was right. So,
Yeah, and just for what it's worth, the People's Court is a different, it's a different thing, because what's happening is it's actually arbitrate. You're actually watching arbitration,
right.
as opposed to a court. Okay, and so they're working with a defendant and a plaintiff, both of whom who have agreed to be on television to hear their
Sure.
arbitration.
Sure.
And so normally a small judge in California who is not a federal judge wouldn't decide copyright cases, but it's good TV, right? And so,
right. And but it was accurate. It was accurate information that,
yeah, you've got to register your images if there's an infringement. There is one of the things PPA is working on is a change to the Copyright Office in that process, where an image, once it's created, is copyrighted. Okay, once the image is clicked, the human author of that image is the one who owns it. Who set up the camera, the one who pressed the button, it all depends, but the one who presses the button is the copyright holder. And if you imagine a latent piece of film that's undeveloped, that image is still copyrighted, even if it's not developed yet. And so once it's created, it's copyrighted. But if you want to take it to the next level and say, I want to sue for damages, then every attorney will tell you, please, you got to register it. In fact, there's an emergency registration process within the U.S. Copyright Office for situations where I remember some years ago when Britney Spears married a young kid from Missouri, and they used his yearbook photo. And the photographer did an emergency registration of the image, and everyone ran this kid's yearbook photo. Made a fortune in infringement.
Interesting.
Britney Spears was the top of her game at that point. She
Yeah.
married. She was married for like 9 days or some really short amount of time.
Yes.
I forget his name, but that was a really famous infringement case
that
revolved really around an emergency registration.
And did somebody win?
Oh yeah, he won a lot of money because everyone ran the photo.
Yeah, thinking it was fine and
fine.
Yes. Now this is a little sideline, but you can buy digital copies of yearbooks, and the yearbook I created is in there. And I'm like, how do they have permission? Do they have permission? Did they just get somebody's yearbook and copy it all, and nobody's challenged that? Because now I was doing it with the school, but it's my baby. And anyway, that's a irrelevant.
Right, the school probably gave permission because of their publication as opposed to your part of the
perhaps, yeah. Or they just figured, what is it? You apologize rather than ask permission, because they have hundreds of yearbook downloads. Anyhow, but if somebody wants their old yearbook, you can look it up. I can't remember where it is. Anyway, I don't want to sidetrack all the good stuff you have to share about selling photography.
Oh man, that's my passion.
Yeah, me too.
We just spent an hour or 2 hours speaking about it in person, and as your SSDC group, which is a great group. I had a great visit there. Coming to that, and for me, sales is, years ago I went to this little photography school in Western Massachusetts called the Hallmark Institute of Photography. And George Rosa Sr., he owned a place called the Hallmark Color Labs. He's not his son. His son, George Rosa Jr., is a different fellow. But George Rosa Sr., he created this Hallmark lab, and it was a type of lab you would mail your film in, and they'd proof and they'd sell prints and that sort of thing. And he started by creating a photography studio, and then there wasn't a lab to service him, so he created a lab and felt I'd make a lot more money if I just printed people's photos than if I shot them. But he had a motto that the school was, which from the creation of it was, nothing happens till the sale is made.
Mm.
And so I remember hearing that at 18 or so when I went to photography school, and the school itself was not an art school; it was a business photography school. It was 1 year, 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday, the business of photography. From learning how to do headshots to gaff, retouching on negative film, and you use a Matthews retoucher and the sprays in which we'd remove blemishes and that sort of thing with pencils, and doing all that retouching, to how to market your business and how to develop your film and print it and do all the things. It was critiques and photographic competitions and all the things that you would expect from an older school. The school has since gone out of business, but for many years it thrived. There was like 200 students there at one point.
Wow, I should have gone.
So, but schools have changed a lot, but that was a big interesting point to me. Nothing happens till the sale is made. And I think way back to when I was 18, even though I wasn't shooting professionally then, that kind of jumped in and said, as you've heard me say, and forgive me because you've heard me say a lot of these things, but my photography is not stellar. I produce solid work, and I produce merit work frequently, and I enter photographic IPC, and I'm involved in that. I want to do well for marketing for my clients. But as it all comes down to it, though, sales is the only reason you can stay here for any length of time. Like, you can fund it yourself, but you need your clients to enjoy your work enough that they're willing to part with part of their income.
Yeah.
So you need to have good sellable photography. It doesn't have to be great, but for us, the big change was when we started trying to collaborate with our clients versus selling them stuff.
What do you mean by sorry to interrupt. Collaborate. So tell me what that is. Collaborate with your clients.
The difference between selling is you walk in as my client, and I'm determined that you're going to buy X amount of products, 10,000, 3,000, 2,000, whatever dollars. But a collaboration between myself and my client looks more like, okay, so this year we want to put up a wall portrait, but I want to hear what you're saying about what your needs are. And it's not about my needs, it's we can work together that hopefully you purchase enough product from me that I can stay in business and be profitable. But also, I don't want you to feel like you're being sold, because it's not the case. My clients want my work, meaning not because I made it, but because someone they love is in those photos. They called me and said, can we photograph a session? I say yes. We spend the time talking about the clothing, and it's an important time in their life that we want to document, whatever the reason is, right? Whether it's a 1-year-old portrait or a senior portrait or a family portrait because their student from West Point is home or whatever. But if we work together to solve the problem they have, which is they need a family portrait or portraits of their children on the wall, then sales becomes very easy. It's not me trying to sell, it's me trying I'm trying to help them achieve what they want to achieve.
So my one question here is, because I feel like my clients don't know they need it until I help them understand it. I don't very often get clients that say, hey, Lucy, I want a wall portrait. Every now and then, this family back here, yes, they knew she had a family that was all together, and she came to me wanting something for her home. But many people, it starts with, we need a portrait of our baby, of our family, of our something. And nowadays, the first thought is, and we'll get digital files, and then we'll figure out what to do with it later. So is that not the experience there in New Hampshire? People like knocking down the door to buy wall portraits?
No one's ever really knocking down the door at a portrait studio, right? I mean, we're not in a mall photographing 18 or 25 sessions a day. We are a lower volume. We probably photograph 60 family sessions a year, and a variety of, you know, other portraits, headshots, and senior portraits and that sort of thing. But my experience is that part of my branding is what tells people they're going to be buying wall portraits. We try to illustrate in our social media people standing with their finished portrait versus standing holding a digital download.
So you're
we don't produce, you know, images on Facebook for our clients to share, but we certainly are branded our studio in our area that we produce and sell wall art, you know, so that you can enjoy it every day without a device.
Got it.
Like all you need is your light and your eyes to view and enjoy our portraits. You don't need an iPad, a computer, a LED TV, or anything. You just need light and eyes. And as you know, Ken Whitmer always says, it's the most spoken about piece of furniture you'll ever own. So,
I wish I could interview him on this show, Jeff.
I know. Ken was an amazing guy. I only met him a few times. I never got a chance to study with him. I wish I had, but he was a brilliant guy who loved wall art, and he loved what it did for families, and he loved how these portraits traveled through people's homes and became part of their furnishings. So really appreciate what Ken did for our industry.
Yes.
By extension, I love what Ken did for all these families who are clients of mine and other people who have been touched by Ken. Now they've been enjoying all these family portraits up for years and years and years.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that you're creating a desire by your branding that of a wall portrait photographer in many levels, so that by the time they come to you, if they're alive, like, hey, Jeff, I want a portrait, rather than maybe some giveaway program or something where they're not sure, you've layered it so much that then they do feel that need when they come to you very often. They're already like the soil is fertile and ready.
Right. When people call in general, I'm not saying that people don't call and say I like files. I personally, we don't happen to sell files, and we aren't knocking if you're out there listening and you sell files, that's your business choice. And for us, we don't sell files because we know it's a lot of effort to produce the work, to get good at your craft. And there's very limited amount of benefit for me, the artist, to sell just files. One of the worst things about it is that the images will never be printed. And therefore the legacy in which I'm so interested in helping my clients create, there is no legacy.
Right.
You know, we can say all we want, that we put them in an Amazon cold storage, or we store them on, you know, a million different places, but when they're just zeros and ones somewhere in the cloud, they're not preserved anywhere.
Right.
They're just one step away from being wiped from it forever. So a wall portrait, or an 8x10, or a 5x7, or whatever, a printed copy is far more likely to be rescued from a fire than a thumb drive.
Right.
You know, or a disc. And so we would prefer to put our efforts into legacy. It just feels better. And our clients know that because we've discussed it. And when they call and ask for files, we just explain that we don't produce that. We don't offer it. I mean, honestly, if they asked us if we sold, you know, rotisserie chickens, we'd also say no. Like, it's a pretty easy thing. It's a pretty easy thing that you don't offer.
We don't sell chicken here.
We don't sell rotisserie chickens. We're gonna let Costco or BJ's or whoever sells rotisserie chickens.
Yeah.
We don't sell them.
Yeah, I love that.
Wall portraits.
Yeah.
And so if they're not our client, which I think there's a lot of people who aren't our clients, we fully are okay with it, and we let them self-identify that they're not a good client, and we wish them well. And we always close with the phrase, if something happens to change, we'd love to make wall art for you.
Yeah.
You know, because that may be that they're a client who wants files today, but has decided after they have gone through the trouble, had images not retouched, had a family who didn't care for their portraits, and then they had to go find a printer and print it and mount it and glass it and mat it and frame it and hang it, that some people change their minds and say, I would much rather that the service was just completed for me.
Right.
So
Right.
those are the type of people we're looking for who want portraits.
Right. I yesterday when I was coaching, helping this amazing photographer who is switching to doing in-person sales, I said, I was pretending she was my client, and the question of, do you sell digitals? And I said, my commitment is to offer the absolute best of me and my work and my talents and my expertise and my time that I can possibly offer to each and every client. And that to me is to help you select and then print the ones you're going to treasure forever. So for that reason, I'm a full service photographer. And I've never said it quite that way. And I was like, I like that. Hey, I want to pause one sec and then I want to show you something. So if you're listening in podcast land, you can go to YouTube land and you can see this. One sec, Jeff. I'm back. Okay. This is in regards to you only need eyeballs and some light. And I found this in a trunk of my at my mother's house that I think came from my dad's mother's. And my sister does not look like me or my mom's side of the family. Neither does her daughter or her granddaughter, but they look like this woman. And it's a tintype. So is it maybe 150 years old? 1880s? When do you know when?
That time. Yeah, 135 or 144 or something.
If this was digital,
if that was a digital file, it would have been gone years and years ago.
Yes. Okay.
It wouldn't have survived a single generation.
So here's my sister, who looks more like this woman. Can you see it?
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
150 years later. So now she got the good genes where she doesn't put on weight, but I'll forgive her for that. But I'm so grateful to the person, I don't know who that is. The sad part is there's nothing written, so I don't know who that is, but I know it's family.
But 6 generations, that's probably 6 generations said this is a photograph and there's value to it.
Right.
6 generations.
And they kept passing it on.
Right, because it had value to it, because they knew what it was.
Yeah.
It's amazing how, I liken it. So for me, again, that I'm always dropping funny things. It's like going to a doctor and asking to do an x-ray and then taking the x-ray home and saying, I'll take it from here.
Oh, that's good.
Right? It's like, I'm going to diagnose it myself. I'll just go on to Shutterfly and figure out what the problem is. Or no, I'll go on to, WebMD, figure out what's bothering me. And then I'll go on to a website that will help me get I'll treat myself.
Right. I'll buy sutures
I'll buy some sutures myself. And it's not that you can't, of course, self-diagnose some issues or be aware of your body and do good things like that. Certainly that's a benefit. In fact, there's many restaurants that function for many, many years, yet supermarkets are also prevalent, right? There are times when a digital file for your phone is all that's needed, and other times it's not. And so that's why we're not trying to be everything to all people at all times.
Right.
When it's time to preserve something and keep legacy, that's when we should be involved.
Right.
So we're not going to go to I don't know, a birthday party likely and photograph candidates. Your phones are fine for that. And honestly, if we miss an image from a birthday party from 20 years ago, well, it might be sad, but it's not tragic. But having no pictures of your 6-time great grandmother, which is who that might be, right?
Yeah.
That's sadness. Like that's not legacy. So we're definitely trying to focus on a legacy, because honestly, and there's no profit in providing a service to which many people can do for themselves for free.
Right.
But we also don't, again, subscribe that you need to hire a professional photographer for every moment of your life, right? Like someone asked me today, we do a trip each year to Tuscany, and someone said, well, what do you suggest people bring for for cameras? And I said, well, if you're not a photographer, just have a really good iPhone, because you're going to enjoy those photographs, the images you make then, so much more than you carrying around a camera.
Mm-hmm.
Professional photographer like we are, we're likely going to bring our 52 megapixel cameras so we can get the most dynamic range, although iPhones have pretty good dynamic range. We're not likely to do that. So the best camera you have is the one that's in your hand. I don't care what it is, like whether it's a sunrise or whether it's about legacy and your grandfather is passing away and you want to get one last image of it, just as long as you have it.
Right.
So I don't see that photographers are required to be at every part of someone's life.
Right. Right.
But I love that we're available when you want to document something.
Right. Right. I was listening to PBS. They have the Moth Radio Hour, which is people tell stories on a Sunday night. And there was a Vietnam veteran telling a story of a battle and, you know, the drama and how he survived. And then at the end, he said, when we were done, you know, and the smoke cleared and everything, we not only had to deal with our dead and wounded, but we had to deal with the Vietnamese. And as we went through what they had on them, almost all of them had photographs.
Yeah.
And that just gave me chills thinking about, and if it had been, oh, almost all of them had cell phones on them with pictures. Well, you know, that's not, when you're doing, I mean, I don't want to get into war stuff, but they probably wouldn't have had places to charge their phones and look at the pictures of the people that they love. So yeah, that just reminded me of how important it is what we do, and that we make sure people have hard copies. I think you used that word when you were speaking. I liked the using that. So do you want to go a little bit over how you do your sales, or
how can I help you, or how can I help your listeners? I'm happy to, I mean, we have, there are two different things that you've heard me talk about, which is one is a sales process and one is a sales plan. And frequently a lot of people get those 2 points confused. The sales process is how you do it, right? Like how it happens. Some people put up 2 images, you pick whichever one you like. Some people choose 10 images. Some people do a slideshow at first. Like that's all about your sales process. Some people do a web gallery ahead of time and say, pick your favorite 40 and then come in. I mean, those are all processes, right? They're how we get there.
All right.
That's a whole different game, because a sales plan is that experience you have and your desire to help your clients have these images for their legacy, and which you kind of mentally take note about what products or things they would like versus what products, things you think they should have versus what products or things they need, right? And there's likes, needs, and professional opinion, of course, right? So they may like a 40 by 80 print, but maybe their budget doesn't allow it, or maybe their room.
Yeah, maybe the wall's not big enough. Or
there's a whole bunch of things they'd like to have. You know, if you ask them what they like, I mean, the whole joke about Henry Ford saying, if I asked the consumer what they wanted, they would have wanted a faster horse.
Right.
He didn't invent the vehicle, Mercedes did, or Benz did, but he certainly perfected the streamlining process of creating them. You know, so our goal isn't to just take what they like, because if you ask them what they want, they say, I want a 40 by 80 and I want it to be for free. Because that's what everyone would want, right? Like if I I mean, what do you want for food? Well, I want to go get a filet and I want it to be less than $5. I mean, that's what
Right.
you want, but
Right.
that's not what's necessarily what's best for anyone involved, because if there isn't, when there's no price, there's usually, when there's a low price, there's almost no value.
Right.
People many times associate what is valuable by how much they pay for something. You buy a
Okay.
$90 steak and you think that must be a good steak. If you buy a $4 steak, you're thinking, I'm going to be sick tonight.
Right. Right. Even if it's the exact same.
Right, because the price sometimes sets a value.
Yeah.
So, you know, within our world, our sales plan is a little bit different for each product line that we offer. For instance, my sales plan for my headshot business, my PR images that we create, which we do, of course, sell files for, because our clients don't need, in many cases, prints, although we do sell prints of our headshots. But our sales plan is very different for a PR headshot client than it would be for a high school senior client or for a family portrait client, right? There's different plans we're going to have. And quite frankly, one of the big differences between like a high school senior client versus a family portrait client is that the family portrait is going to be focused a lot more on several wall portraits. So of course, we'll have a larger wall portrait because maybe there's 3, 4, 5, 6, however many adults or people in the photo. So head size plays a factor, right? Like we don't want to be little pennies of faces that you can't enjoy.
Right. Yeah. I always.
Senior might be an individual image with a collage showing some more of their character or interests at this point in their life.
Okay.
The plan might be, I'm just giving you an example, like the plan might be different. And that's okay.
So the plan is sort of the end result.
So the plan is the plan is my professional experience saying most people, we suggest that you order this.
Okay. So
it's easily deviated, meaning a client may very easily tell me, we don't want that. I don't like fill in the blank. Gift print. I don't like wall art. I don't like albums. I don't like, or they don't have a need for that. And that's okay. So our plan is a way in which we are collaborating with them from our years of experience. We would love them to order a wall portrait first because it sets the tone for their home. That's the tone for everything. Like, we always talk about, if I given a choice, if I could wave that magic wand, I'd love your wall portrait to be displayed from the kitchen, not in the kitchen, but viewed from the kitchen and viewed from another room. So you have this dual areas of transition that would allow you to enjoy your family up on the wall. Okay. Now, so everyone's home does that though, right? That's where things start. That's why we say it's a collaboration.
Got it. Okay. So when I'm teaching, I call it becoming the trusted advisor. You're describing what I would call that, which is helping them, participating together and using my experience, my background, giving guidance for them. So can you do like some bullet points of a sales plan starting from the first phone call, or how you create?
I'll talk about our family portrait sales plan. Okay?
Yes.
So let's say I photograph your family, and of course it's very easy in these sort of bullet points to like come up with reasons why someone wouldn't. But for the sake of this podcast, we're just going to assume it's like improv. Every answer is yes, right?
Yes, and.
Yes, and. Exactly.
I took improv for a couple of years before COVID, and yes, and.
Yeah, yes, and.
Yes. Okay. So yes, and Jeff. So sales plan.
We want to focus on an impact piece that is on the wall somewhere, and at least one. And in many cases, depending on the home or the client, there may be a secondary family pose they really like that they could put in an office or a second home. Excuse me. Or for a host of reasons, they could have a portrait of them walking on the beach hand in hand, looking at each other, as well as a formal portrait with the pier in the background, or whatever. There may be two totally different poses, could be two totally different clothing situations.
Okay. Jeff, I'm just a little bit lost. So
You said you want to know what the sales plan was.
Yes, but I need to hook into where we're starting this. So are we starting this at the first contact, or are you talking about the design session?
The sales plan starts at the end of your selection process.
Okay.
So even though we're selling, if you will, by the nature of the idea of putting out the idea of concept, we are selling from the phone call. The first time they call, we explain that we are a full service portrait studio. We are known for producing and installing wall art. Like, that's all selling, if we want to be honest about it. But it's definitely, that's not our sales plan. Our sales plan kicks in after we are down to the point where we're down to the 18 or 26 or 42 or 12 images they love.
Got it. So
when you ask the question, how are you going to use these?
Okay.
Sales plan starts.
So step one, how are you going to use these? Whether you're saying that or whether you're saying, okay, let's take a look at how we can use these. So you've done everything, just to make sure I'm clear. You've done everything up to the point where you've narrowed down to the best ones, the favorites.
The ones they love.
Yes. Okay. Then we're like, okay, what are we going to do with these? So
so in my opinion, and this is where my sales plan starts, we should start with a wall portrait. And so let's pick your favorite one. Where is it going to go? In most cases, we of course use Pro Select. We use the production module, Pro Select Pro, for a couple of reasons, but we usually use Send My Rooms, which will allow the client to send me a photo of their room with a little piece of paper on it that allows me to scale, so I can show them exactly what an image will look like on their wall.
Okay.
And so let's just pretend that it's a 24 by 36, that's the size they want. And then say, okay, so we have this other family portrait. How are we going to use that? And that's when they say, well, get the secondary room. Maybe this is the one of us walking on the beach. Maybe we do that in black and white to kind of offset any familiar colors, so it doesn't look like it's the same session as much. And we're going to put that over the couch in the den or something.
Okay.
And then so we go with that. Then we move to the next grouping, which would be mom and dad and the children. How do we want to hang these portraits? Usually most parents will order a smaller one of themselves. It's like maybe it's a New England thing. It could be that same way in California. I know that in New England, the parents want like nothing larger than a 16-inch print of the two of them, but they'll do 24-inch portraits of their two kids or three kids. It's a funny thing. It's like almost like it almost seems braggy or something that they would put up a portrait of, a mom and her husband or a dad.
Right.
Or, moms or something like, but for some reason that's how it is in New England. It may be different for you, but we're still in the wall portrait range here. We help them choose an image of the couple, if there's a couple.
Mm-hmm. Choose
an image of the three kids or whatever, and then see if an individual images of each child makes sense.
Okay.
Portraits. And then we move to smaller portraits, like what we would call impact pieces. I think Tim Walden probably calls them. Yeah, I probably got that from him. I think he calls them. No, what does he doesn't call them impact? He calls them. I'll remember in a second. But they're smaller pieces that you might run adjacent to wall portraits, or making little four 12 by 12s in one grouping, or gosh, what does he call that? Yeah, I'll remember.
I call it a story group. It doesn't have to be my word to think about.
It could be a
wall portraits
or a 12 by 12, or it's I'll stop thinking about it. I'll remember in a minute.
Okay. Yes, it'll download.
We don't call it that way with our clients, but there are secondary pieces of art that might go somewhere else.
Okay.
Like it might be the three kids laughing.
Yes.
It would be in addition to the wall portrait generally.
Right.
And then through our sales plan, we would ask them about gift portraits. So 8 by 10s, 5 by 7s, images for family, friends, godparents, the grandparents, that sort of thing. And then if there's enough images in it, then we talk about seeing if a family album makes the most sense.
Got it.
And so as we go through that sales plan, it's just like a map, if you will, for us to help keep the client so that it's very easy to become scatterbrained.
Right.
Like, oh my God, we don't need a wall portrait. Yeah. And we need 1 5x7 for my mom. And that the problem is that they tend to forget all the things they're doing. And so we just walk them through this plan, then they're usually pretty happy.
Yeah. So do you price it as you go along, or do you do everything and say, now that's $40,000?
No,
How do you pay for that?
we add everything to the cart. ProSelect has a cart feature that I just press the shopping cart, and I add the 24x30 into with the frame they've chosen right into the cart, and the client can see the price as it's going up.
As you go along. So
As
you're getting the agreement. So there's not
I'm not
that.
afraid of it because it is what it is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if I was buying, I don't know what I would buy that would be stuff like, but if I was buying something, I mean, if I was buying a bunch of things on Amazon, I certainly wouldn't want to add things to the cart and not watch the price go up. Like,
Right.
I'd like to know if I've got a budget in mind, I'd like to monitor it. I'm an adult, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not a child, so I'm not afraid of why things are what they cost, because I know there's a value there, there's legacy there, there's history. There's also a master photographer with years of experience. In fact, in almost all our sessions, 2 master photographers with many years of experience that show up to their sessions. There's, you know, we are very good at our craft. We also install the portraits. All those things tell me, and actually the biggest thing is that the only place you can get my art is from me. So that's the price. And I charge what I need to charge to stay in business, to be here 5 years from this time to redo your next portrait.
Mhm.
And when your child has children, I want to be here for them. Like, I want to be a full service legacy type studio for you.
Right.
And so we don't have any fear about saying the price out loud or having the client know the price.
Right. Right.
For us.
Yes. And as they go along, they're kind of, each number as the price is going, as the total invoice is going up, they're sort of settling in a step at a time.
Yeah.
Rather than like a fire hose of, okay, we want all this now. Here's what the invoice amount is for that. So I imagine there can still be sticker shock when they really think about it as a whole, but I do the same. I stop and give a total before I go on to smalls of everything I consider wall, to make sure, even though they've heard, this is this much and this is that much, hearing the total, so we can figure out where we go from there, is something I didn't used to do. And then people would just be overwhelmed. And
yeah, so here's where I'm not gonna say I disagree, and I don't, because it's not, because I should, the totals on the screen every time I add a thing. One of the things I'll mention is that I don't say the prices out loud, not because I'm afraid of them, but because of my own problem with pricing, right? I believe they're valuable, but what I believe is one of my highest portrait sales might be what they were expecting to pay. And what I believe is a ridiculously reasonable portrait sale might be something they've saved up 12 years for. Either way, you can apply something in your voice that says something different than what they're feeling. In fact, I guarantee you're almost always going to say something different than what they're feeling.
Huh.
So if someone says, where are we at right now? And I just open the cart and show and not highlight, but I show them what their total is. I let them say it, because if I say it, I'm living inside my checkbook. If they say it in their head, they're going to live inside their checkbook.
Interesting.
And it's not that I'm trying to get them to go up or spend more. It's simply that I don't want to apply my sense of value to that. I want that. And if it's too much, they'll say, okay, we're approaching my top end. Okay.
Right.
So we've got a couple more things we do what you said you wanted to add. So if they mention that in the middle of step 1, I'm going to say, so before we go further, you did say you wanted to get some portraits for grandma for Christmas, and that was one of the reasons. So then now they say, you're right, we do, and it's up to them to give you the go ahead of, we're going to go past our budget.
Got it.
But so for me, that's how we do it.
Yes, and I'm Miss Analog, so I don't add things to a cart.
Yeah.
So I have to say it verbally.
Yeah, I
And
totally get it. Everyone does different things. I'll tell you that obviously I told you I use ProSelect. I'm a big proponent of what that software offers.
uh,
They're so used to adding things to the cart now. I'm really in part of that zone with them.
yeah,
Amazon, their whole life is adding
right,
things to carts. And
right,
so I love that software is already tying into uh something they're used to doing themselves.
right. Yeah,
Right. Like
I
so
can
not
see that.
not
I
knocking the analog at all. It just for us, it's an easy step to
sure.
get.
Yeah, I didn't use ProSelect for years because there's certain things I do in my sales plan that I couldn't do in ProSelect, but I can now.
Yeah,
Particularly, I make sets. So once we get to their favorites, then we separate them in the highest potential. Could this be wall, small, or only go in a book? And
yeah,
so now I can do that. But because of that, and iPhoto now has become photos, and there's a lot of things I used to be able to do with them in iPhoto that Photos doesn't do easily anymore. So ProSelect is my go-to. But part of why I, said them out loud was because I didn't have the ProSelect functioning the way I wanted it to be able to
right.
use their shopping cart. But they've,
You're not alone. There's a lot of people. The thing about ProSelect is it's of course it's not as big as Photoshop, right? But it feels like it might as well be because it does so much.
yes.
People are usually afraid to put the time into to do it. And ProSelect is one of those pieces of software. It does a lot.
Oh, it's
It
incredible.
takes a long time to learn it. I mean,
Mhm.
you can use it from day one and just show it images and handwrite it if you want, or like getting the pricing and the frames in, the frames calculated, the pricing, the
Yeah,
add-ons, the percentages. It just takes effort, but that's what we're doing. We're running a business here. This isn't a hobby, right?
right,
So it takes time sometimes to do all that and to get it up and running so that it's efficient.
right.
Like no store. I mean, we walked through Portsmouth, New Hampshire this morning, and we passed by all these wonderful little art stores. I guarantee you, even if they're cute and they've got all these great, they have an inventory control system.
Right.
It's not
Absolutely.
just in someone's head. And
Right.
so one of the things I see frequently amongst newer photographers or even some established photographers is they don't treat their business like a business. They
Mhm.
treat their business like a hobby. And
Right.
I certainly want them to be profitable. And if you're not
Absolutely.
making any money, as you know, it's called a hobby. So if you choose it to be a hobby and you treat it like a hobby, it's likely going to be a hobby. But if you
Mhm.
put the time in and create a sales process, a sales plan, and choose a software, I don't care whether it's another software besides ProSelect, whatever works for you works for you.
Right. Right.
Because
Yes.
to get successful, you're going to need that. You're going to start buying your time back.
Right.
I say the
Absolutely.
way to do it is to do it right in the first place, and you don't have to buy as much back.
Yeah, I got it. So we're just about out of time.
Boy, that
Um,
went fast.
I know. And I'm really proud of myself for being able to record this in a way that'll be easy to pop on video.
I
So
love it.
if anybody has listened to this, but you're a YouTube fan and you want to look at his handsome face and I'm having a good hair day, pop over to YouTube and find us there. So,
Well,
um,
thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure again. It was great to see you in person, and I'm always happy to help if I can.
thank you. So I have two quick questions.
Oh, okay.
If somebody wants to know more, get in touch with you, say hello, whatever.
You can certainly find me at jdachowskippa@mail.com. So that's jdachowskippa@mail.com.
How do you
You can
spell
also
Dachowski?
DACHOWSKI. You can
Okay.
check out our work, our sellable work at DachowskiPhotography.com. You
Okay.
can follow us over on Instagram, Dachowski_photography, or as I always joke, there's still 12 more spots for you to follow us on Instagram. We got 12 more spots.
I like it. Yes, and follow me on Instagram too,
Yeah,
everyone.
follow me,
I'm
photographer.
I'm upping my Instagram action these days. So, all right. And so I want your either parting word, or if there's something that you feel like, oh, I wish I had shared this. So this is your opportunity for your last word.
Well, I'll leave you with this. One of the most frustrating things we ever did in our studio it's 20 years now that we've been in business. We had a lot of fear and trepidation about our own value. You know, for us, we didn't believe we were worth it, or we listened to people who told us we weren't worth it because they wanted to get it for free, or any of those sort of things. I'm going to tell you that you are worth it. The only place that's going to give your take on photography, your portrait, your landscape, whatever it is you. So if there was only one supply of one thing in the world, you certainly would be able to charge whatever you wanted for it. And so I'm not telling you to charge a specific thing. I'm just saying you're worth it. You've got to be profitable when you do this.
Yes.
Because if not, you won't be doing this. And I know if you're listening to this, you love photography, you love what you do, and you probably would like to make more money at it so that you can provide for your family in the lifestyle or whatever you want to do. So charge what you're worth and don't fear it for a second.
Right.
Every day people walk into stores and they don't buy anything because they're not that store's customer. Every day. So when people call you and say, I want to get a portrait made, and they say, it's how much? Oh, no, I'm not interested. That's not about you. That's about their value.
Right.
Your value.
Got it.
I believe in your value.
I love it. Thank you, Jeff, so much for being on the show and for everything you've done for this industry, and I know we'll do in the future. So
happy to be here. Hopefully see you at Imaging USA.
Yes. I'm all booked, ready to roll.
Right. Me too.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, I forgot to remind you to stay tuned for my wrap up, but here it is. Hopefully you stuck around after I said goodbye to Jeff. Before I do, just reminding you to catch me on YouTube. And I'm really grateful if you would follow me or subscribe on YouTube. I'm trying to get enough subscribers on my new channel so that I can have a custom name instead of a long bunch of numbers, and also because I want you to be able to absorb all the goodness in the video form if that's something that you enjoy. So, little wrap up. We talked about the Professional Photographers of America. I meant to ask him if people can join if they don't live in the US, and I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. So you can, there's education, there's so many things, even if you're not living, in the same country. So joining is highly recommended. And then we talked about the value of selling hard copies, printed work for our clients. And I like that he said, we're not for everybody. So when you think about, in my area, people won't buy that. Well, in every area, there are a lot of people that won't. And our job is to find those that will. He considers what he does with clients collaboration. So they're working together to figure out what would be beautiful as art in their homes. And instead of trying to sell, he's working with them. And I like that. And then I love the quote from Ken Whitmire that he said is that wall portraits are the most talked about pieces of furniture in your home. And if you're wondering, what's that piece of equipment behind my chair? If you're seeing this visually, but if you're listening, behind my chair is a big white projection. I'm now in my conference room and I have a movie screen on the other side of the room. And so my clients and I sit at the back of this room like a theater. And that's how I sell my work. And then he talked about his sales plan. So what you do step by step once you have the images, and how we start with the wall portrait, the main thing, and then the next, and then groupings, and keep working down smaller ones, gift portraits, albums, and so forth. So having a system and starting with the larger images is something that works for him. And then his last word was to remember that there's only one way that somebody can get what it is that you offer. You're a one of a kind. So that means what you do has value, and it has high value because it's completely unique. They cannot get it anywhere else. So thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing or following everywhere you can and staying in touch. And sending out a big hug. Bye.